Welcome back to part 2 of our training series on art reporting. In the last video we looked at the 625 report, which shows an overview of some of the things going on in your program over a given period of time. In this video we're going to look at the 631, which goes into much more detail about those same clients that were reported on in the 625. I'm on the homepage dashboard of Service Point right now. Again, I'm in the training site. I'm going to do exactly what we did before and go into Reports, scroll down and select Art. To get to the 631, we need to go to the same spot that we found the 625. So I'm going to expand the public folder and then Art Report Index. Then I will have my list of numbers here. Again, this is a 631, so I need to go into the 600 folder. And open up my 631 by clicking the magnifying glass. Same exact process as the 625. Here I'm going to do Edit Report again so I can get use of those input controls. I wouldn't have those otherwise. And when I click Edit Report, of course it's going to load everything up. It may take a minute, just as before. Okay, do you want to run this application? This is a permission reference for Java. So I'm selecting Run. And here in just a moment, everything should load up. Okay, we have a pop-up here. Don't need to worry about that. And again, just like last time with the 625, we see our framework of the report in the background with no data loaded into it. And here in a moment we will see our prompts window. When running a 625 and a 631 together to look at the full situation of whatever project you're working with over whatever specified amount of time, you need to answer these prompts exactly the same. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to be looking at two different sets of information and trying to compare them to one another. It's not going to work. Again, I'm going to move this and expand the window here so that I can see all of my prompts. These prompts are exactly the same as they were on the 625. Again, I don't need to select a provider group. This first number one here, I never need to change that. But I do need to select a provider for the second number one. I'm going to click Refresh Values so it can load up the provider areas. And again, I'm going to look for Kentucky Housing Corporation dummy project. You can also type down here to search if you would prefer that route. Once I have found it, I can double click or I can hit the arrow to the right to move it over to this box. And I'm going to take that none selected out just like we did last time. So I'll highlight it and hit the left arrow. Now that this question is filled in, start date. So on the 625, the date range that I did was April 8th, 2014 until April 8th, 2015. Okay? I'm going to do that same thing this time because I need those sets of data to match. Okay? So 4/8/2014 and I'm pressing enter. Moving on to end date, which will be 4/8/2015. Pressing enter. Again, my entry type in this situation is HUD. I'm just double clicking it to move it over there. I do not need to worry about EDA provider. I don't need to worry about changing the adult age. So on to effective date, which remember, it's always important to remember that this always needs to be the same as the end date. Okay? And another thing to note is that these the end and effective dates should not be anything past the current date. Okay, so it's 4/8/2015. I shouldn't put an end date of 4/10/2015, for example. And then the same as these, the same situation with these last four questions, they should all be yes, just like we did on the 625. I'm just going through, clicking the question, double clicking yes, move to the next question, double clicking yes, and my refresh data button, is allowing me to click it now. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to process the request. This shouldn't take long. I tested this earlier and it didn't. You'll see it's already thrown in some data in the background. We get this pop up again. Don't need to worry about it. Sometimes it'll say something a little different, but again, most of the time it's not anything to worry about. If it says something like no data to retrieve, and that's all it says, that's probably some kind of indicator that you've run the report incorrectly. Maybe maybe one of the prompts was not answered right, something like that. So here is my 631 report. This is, as I mentioned before, going to show us all of our client detail so that we can really dig in and find out where those errors are that we saw in the 625. We have our summary page at the very beginning on tab A. So this outlines things like how many clients were served, how many of those were leavers, meaning they left the program, how many were stayers, meaning they remained in the program during this time frame, how many households were served, and so on. So same layout as the 625. We have the tabs at the bottom, okay, tab A, B, C, D, and it goes on. We can click these arrows over in the bottom right to look at more of these tabs. And same as the 625, in each of these there could be multiple pages, so we can use this page control towards the upper right to navigate through these pages. So I moved over to tab B, the summary detail. So what this does is it lays out a list of, now these are fake clients, remember none of these are real people, and it lays out a list of all of the clients, their client ID numbers, and then, first name, last name, social, date of birth, and so on and so on. And it'll just tell us right off the bat if this information is either set as don't know or refused in that client's records, or if it's just missing. So you'll see there are a lot of errors here, obviously. So Alan Scott, for example, client number 123, he is missing his information for whether or not he has a disabling condition, his residence prior to project entry, he's missing his income on the entry assessment, he's missing his non-cash benefits on the entry assessment, he's missing what specific disabilities he has, and he's missing his domestic violence question. Okay, and this is just an easy way to get a very quick look. Okay, so I know that just by looking at any of these clients, like John Cash, for example, client number 156, he has don't know or refused answered on his social security number. Okay, I could go in, I could search for his number, 156. I could move to service point here, click on client point and search for him, 156, and then I could go find this information and fix it. That would be specifically client profile. You'll see he does not have a social. It's blank. This is how you fix these errors. You just use the report to figure out which client that error is actually on, and then you can go in and find it and fix it. Now this is just a brief overview window here telling us these certain things, but we need to get a little more specific. First, let's go over some of these tabs. We have tab C, which represents age and gender detail. It just lays out their name data quality, date of birth type, which also refers to data quality, gender, and so on. You'll see our first specific error that we've spotted here. It's this red null. Okay, there are 4 color codes when it comes to error messages or potentially not error messages in art reporting. We're going to go over that in just a minute, but red is one of those. Okay. Tab D here is assessment detail. This refers to their prior living situation, veteran status, and their domestic violence situation. You see some other errors here in red, and then these pieces of information in blue. So there are 2 color codes that we've seen already. You have the Master Household Detail tab. This just goes into how the households are actually structured. I'm going to use this arrow to the right here. I'm just going to glance over some of these because a lot of them contain similar information. This refers to, again, household membership information. Tab I refers to entry-exit detail. So it shows the client name, the ID, what date they entered the program, what day they exited the program, if they have an interim that's been done, length of stay, how many days was it, household type, provider, destination, and so on. Now, one of the biggest places that errors appear is the income detail section, tab J. Now, it might be a little tough to see this. I'm going to make this window a little smaller here. See if I can blow this up to 150%. So this is all information related to income detail for these clients. The first thing that you'll probably notice is that for each client they have multiple rows associated with them. Specifically, it should be at least 15. Lynn Radford here, this example client number 45, they have a row for, it's basically each source of income that they could have. As of the new HUD data standards in 2014, HUD made it required that you actively had to select whether or not a client was getting each source of income. They had a list of 15 specified sources of income, and instead of just specifying which ones that they had, you have to now go in and say which ones they do not have and which ones they do have. We call this the HUD verification step. Okay? And that's why they have so many rows of data on the 631. So you'll see Lynn has a line for alimony or other spousal support. She has a row for general assistance. She has a row for pension, earned income, child support, and so on. Each of these types of income sources, she will have a separate row for. As a result, this makes the report significantly longer than it would be, or than it would have been prior to the new data standards coming into play last year. But this is how this section of the 631 looks. Now, you'll see over to the right, exit follow-up source here. These are listed in green. So there's our third color code. We have red, blue, and green so far. More on that in just a moment. Okay, we don't see any other issues on this page. We can keep going through the pages using the page navigator up towards the top right and looking through. I have some notes here that say where some specific errors are located here so I can discuss them. And actually we're going to jump to one of those right now. That's going to be page 4 would be a good example for this. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to switch pages. This is especially true of the live site. Here we see some more of these red null errors, and we see some of these blue no record errors. But on page 4 we see an interesting one, and it's a pretty common one as well. It's the green with a strike through. Okay, that's our fourth and final color code that we see here. So let's go over what these mean. Now red is bad, specifically bad. Red means that there is some kind of an error with the data quality. In this case, when it says null, that just means that it's missing. So for Diana Scott and Alan Scott, if I look up at the column header, so the question related to do these clients have income, and this is for their entry assessment. So do they have any earned income at the time of entry? The user left this question blank. Okay, that's why this is specifically shown in red, is because that question is missing an answer, and it specifically needs an answer. Now, oftentimes when you see a red error, you may have to dig around to try and find out what's causing the error. Sometimes it's not self-explanatory. If you have trouble with anything like that, feel free to contact us via the help desk so we can try to assist you with that. Now the next color code is blue. Blue, not necessarily a problem. Okay? You'll see here, blue just means no record. But sometimes it's not an issue. You may have instances where it says no record and it's fine. It's not something that should come up as a large red flag. Just make sure to pay attention to it just in case it's something you need to go back into. Now you have green, just standard green, not with the line through it. Green means that a client has been in your program for at least 365 days. That's normal for a lot of programs. But then green with a strike through is a problem. Now, regular green that does not have a strike through, that's not a problem. It's common. Okay, it's just telling you at a glance that they've been in there for at least a year. But green with a strike through is an issue because that means that the client has been in your program for at least 365 days, which is fine, but it means that they haven't had an annual assessment to recertify their income, their non-cash benefits, their disabilities, etc. Okay, that is a problem. It's required that an annual assessment be done, obviously, once a year. Okay, so this just tells you at a glance that these clients need to have an annual assessment done. An annual assessment is a type of interim. Okay, so we know just by looking at this client, this is Diana Scott, and then it looks like Alan Scott here up at the top two rows. It looks like he's fine. So Alan Scott has been in for at least a year, and so has Diana Scott, but Diana Scott doesn't have an annual assessment. So the whole point of this is to help you, like I mentioned before, sift through and find which clients are causing the errors. So if you see something show up on your 625 and it's saying, hey, you have an error related to income at entry, this helps you run that, look through your clients, and find out which client it is that's having some kind of an error on their income at entry. Now here's another issue. This one shows up as red. You'll see it has a kind of a yellowish background to it. What this means, and you see it says no financial resources. Prior to the new data standards, from October 2014, no financial resources was something that needed to be used anytime a client had no income from any source. And it was a valid answer. But as of those new data standards in October, that's no longer a valid response. If you look at these other ones, you'll see these all contain parentheses HUD at the end of it. So earned income, parentheses HUD, other, parentheses HUD. What that means is these are HUD approved valid sources. Okay? You'll notice that there is no parentheses HUD besides no financial resources. That's because it's no longer a valid response. So all you would need to go do is look up Mama John's here, client number 132, and check out the situation with no financial resources. It may be that an end date is needed. If it was an older record that existed prior to those new data standards, it may just need an end date put on it so that it's not interfering with your data, or it could need to be deleted. It depends on the situation. Okay, again, if you have issues with anything like this, you can feel free to contact us so we can try to help. This is the general format of looking at any error within the 631. This is going to be the case with income. This is going to be the case with non-cash benefits and health insurance. Okay, so just keep these color codes in mind. If it's red, it's an error and you may need to investigate it. If it's green, they've been in for at least a year, it's not a problem. If it's green with a strike through, they've been in for at least a year, but they need to have an annual assessment done. And if it's blue, not necessarily an issue, but just pay attention to it. I do want to talk about the non-cash benefit and insurance detail page. Now, here on this page, let me zoom in a little bit. It's laid out the exact same way. And sometimes this zoom feature is a little finicky. But it's laid out the exact same way as tab J was. So we see Lynn Radford again. Now on the new way they're doing these art reports, they're combining non-cash benefits and insurance into one section or one tab. This is tab K. So you'll see Lynn Radford here. She once again has many different rows, but there's a cutoff point. So these top 8 right here, supplemental nutrition assistance program, that's SNAP benefits, other TAMP funded services, TAMP childcare services, and so on, down to temporary rental assistance. These are all non-cash benefits. Okay, but then it breaks. And then these, from this point on, Medicare, State Children's Health Insurance Program, VA medical services, Medicaid, these are insurance benefits, okay, or insurance sources. So you'll see these are split, okay? And again, this follows the same kind of workflow as looking for problems on the income section. If it's red, you need to look it up and try to find out what's going on with it. If it's blue, it might be missing, and so on. But you're not really going to see, or you may not see, the green with strike through errors or anything like that here. Now, sometimes these errors can be somewhat obvious, but sometimes not. It really just kind of depends. Okay, I actually jumped back over to tab J. I'm on page 12 of tab J. I found a very specific error type here that I wanted to show you. We're looking here, this is client Jimmy John's number 183. We have his list of income sources. These are his 15 approved sources from HUD. Now you'll see that all of these are listed as a red no. This really only indicates that there's one problem, not multiple. Okay? Now, if you recall, on the entry assessment, you have each of the 4 HUD verification steps where you open the window and it has the checklist for yes and no. There's one for monthly income, there's one for non-cash benefits, health insurance, and disabilities. Before each of those HUD verification boxes for each of those sections, there's a question that asks if that client has that specific type of item at the time of entry. So, does the client have income from any source? Does the client have non-cash benefits from any source? Does the client have a disabling condition? Does the client have health insurance? Now, on the income tab, this column, if we look at the column header, we can see it refers to entry income, yes or no. That's that yes or no question before the HUD verification step. That's the income from any source question, yes or no. So this is a very obvious error right here because we see that all of his no's are showing up in red. This means that this question was answered as no. So income from any source for this client was answered as no for entry, but the user went in and actually marked yes for a source of earned income. So this is showing as an error because these are conflicting. If this says no, if you put no for the income from any source question, then all of these sources in that checklist should be checked off as no. Okay, if that's not the case, then you're going to get an error for that. That's what happened here. He answered that income from any source question as no, but he or she selected yes for earned income in the checklist. As a result, it's going to give you an error. That's a real simple fix though. You can just go in. I will go to his record. In client point here, he's 183. I'm going to go to the entry exit tab. Here's his entry. I'll go down. Okay, so here's the income from any source question above the HUD verification window, like I mentioned before. You'll see it has an answer of no here. So he's saying that the client does not have any income at the time he entered the program. But if I look at the HUD verification checklist, I'll see that earned income is selected as yes. If that were the case, if the client actually had earned income at the time of entry, then this question, income from any source, would need to be yes. Okay? Likewise, if he actually didn't have earned income at the time of entry, this question would need to be no, and in the HUD verification window, this bubble would need to be changed to no as well. Okay? Then that will fix the error. But like I said, often you really need to go in and investigate the client's records to see what's causing the error. Okay? Also, just like the 625, on this 631, the very last tab, tab N in this case, this is the additional information tab that contains how the prompts were answered. These here were answered exactly like the prompts were on the 625, so that we could compare the same information. Now this really covers all the basics for running a 625 and a 631 in Service Point, and really just getting the hang of how to answer these prompts for art reporting. Even different types of reports have similar prompts, especially for start date, end date, effective date, provider, EDA provider, and so on. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Have a great day.